When your own blood betrays you, the wound cuts deeper than any knife. I never imagined the person who would stab me in the back was my own sister, and that she would do it with my husband. But before I continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Your support helps us share more stories like this one. Alright, here's my story. My name is Jenny, I'm 29 years old, and until recently I thought I had everything figured out. A stable marriage, a promising career, and a family I believed I could always count on. Especially my sister. She and I had been inseparable since childhood. We weren't just siblings, we were best friends. We shared clothes, secrets, heartbreaks, and dreams. I trusted her more than anyone in the world. So imagine the heartbreak of realizing that same sister was the one who would betray me in the cruelest way possible. When I first met my husband, I thought I'd found the love of my life. He was gentle, funny, and attentive, the kind of man who made me feel like the center of the universe. We dated for 2 years before marrying, and in that time, he blended into my family as though he had always been meant to be there. And my sister? She seemed thrilled for me. At least, that's what I believed. She praised him endlessly, laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, leaned in too close when he spoke. At first, I thought nothing of it. That's just how she is, I told myself. She's bubbly, affectionate. But slowly, something started to feel wrong. Her compliments grew more personal. Her eyes lingered on him too long. She began showing up at our house more often, always dressed up as though she were attending a date rather than visiting family. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was being paranoid. After all, this was my sister, my best friend. She would never do something so vile. And then came the night my world shattered. My phone had died, so I borrowed my husband's. While scrolling, I saw her name flash across the screen with a new message. For reasons I can't explain, my hand trembled as I clicked it open. And there it was, the truth staring me in the face. Her words weren't those of a sister to her brother-in-law. They were intimate, affectionate, unmistakably romantic. And his replies? They were just as damning. Promises to see her soon. Inside jokes. Compliments on how beautiful she was. I felt my stomach drop. My breath caught in my throat. My whole body went cold. My sister, the girl I trusted with everything, was sharing something behind my back with my husband. I wanted to scream, to wake him up and throw the phone in his face. I wanted to call her and demand an explanation. But instead, I sat frozen, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. And then, something unexpected happened. Instead of unleashing my fury, I felt this sharp, almost chilling clarity. No, I told myself. If I confront them now, they'll deny it. They'll twist it. They'll make me look like the jealous wife. No, I'll wait. I'll be patient. And when the time is right, karma will do the work for me. So I stayed quiet. Every day after that was torture. I saw the way she touched his arm when she thought I wasn't looking. I heard the whispers late at night when she called. I felt the distance growing between him and me, like a canyon widening with every passing day. Nights were the worst. I would lie in bed beside him, tears sliding silently down my face while he scrolled through his phone. By morning, I'd force a smile, cover my red eyes with makeup, and pretend everything was fine. And the cruelest part? To everyone else, they were perfect. She was the loving sister, always supportive. He was the charming husband. And me? I was invisible in my own marriage. Then one evening, it happened. He sat me down at the kitchen table, his expression flat, rehearsed. He told me he didn't think our marriage was working anymore, that he had found someone else. I asked who, though my heart already knew. I needed to hear it. And when he said her name, my sister's name, something inside me shattered beyond repair. He didn't even look ashamed. He said it with certainty, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He even told me they wanted to get married. Within weeks, they announced their engagement. My family was horrified, relatives whispered, neighbors gossiped. But my sister? She smiled like she had won a trophy. She paraded him around like he was some prize she had stolen fair and square. Everyone expected me to crumble, to lash out, to fall apart. And yes, part of me did break. But another part of me was sharper than ever. Because while she flaunted her stolen happiness, I was waiting. I was planning. And I knew the day would come when she'd regret every single thing she had done to me. And trust me, that day came. When people heard the news that my husband left me for my younger sister, everyone expected me to disappear into shame. My relatives stopped calling, neighbors whispered behind my back, and even a few so-called friends suggested I move away to start fresh. But I didn't run. I stayed. Because deep inside, I knew something they didn't. This story wasn't over yet. After their engagement, my sister walked around like a queen. She'd flaunt the ring on her finger, a sparkling reminder of the man she stole from me. She posted pictures of them together online, all fake smiles and captions about true love. And every time I saw them, it felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. But I learned to wear a mask. I stopped showing my pain. I stopped letting them see me bleed. Instead, I smiled politely, offered congratulations when asked, and even attended family gatherings where they sat side by side, smug as ever. What they didn't know was that while they were basking in their stolen happiness, I was watching. I was learning. And I was waiting. See, my husband, or ex-husband, I should say, was not the loyal, perfect man my sister thought she had won. I knew his weaknesses better than anyone. I knew his secrets, his lies, and the trail of messes he always left behind. And while my sister thought she was the special one, I knew the truth: she was just the next in line. The first crack appeared only weeks into their engagement. One night, when my sister thought no one was listening, I overheard her arguing on the phone. Her voice was sharp, panicked. She accused him of hiding money, of lying about work. The call ended with her slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I smiled to myself in the dark. So, the perfect couple already has problems. Still, I didn't say a word. I let them continue their charade. I let her brag to anyone who would listen about her dream wedding and her soulmate. I even nodded along when relatives whispered, "Jenny must be so jealous." But behind closed doors, I was working. I threw myself into my career with a fire I didn't know I had. I took on extra projects, stayed late at the office, and quietly built my savings. Every dollar I earned felt like a brick in the foundation of a new life. A stronger life. I also started gathering information. Carefully, quietly. My husband had always been careless with money. He borrowed from friends, made risky deals, and covered it up with smooth lies. I knew where the bodies were buried, figuratively speaking. I knew which accounts he hid, which debts he never admitted to. And I knew it was only a matter of time before those lies caught up to him. The more I learned, the more confident I became. My heartbreak was still raw, yes, but it was hardening into something sharper. Something that gave me strength. Then came the wedding preparations. My sister was obsessed with every detail: the dress, the flowers, the venue. She paraded around town with catalogs and planners, dragging my mother to fittings, showing off pictures of cakes and rings. She looked at me with that smug little smile, as if daring me to object. But I didn't. I kept quiet. I even pretended to help. One afternoon, she asked if I'd go with her to see the venue. I said yes, even though every part of me wanted to scream. As she twirled in the middle of the empty hall, gushing about how magical it would be to walk down the aisle, I stood there silently, clutching my bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. And that's when it hit me: she had no idea. No idea about the man she was marrying. No idea about the secrets he was hiding. No idea about the storm waiting just beyond the horizon. But I did. I could have warned her. I could have shouted the truth. But I didn't. Because I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't stopping her, it was letting her walk right into the trap she had set for herself. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. My heart raced, not with sadness anymore, but with anticipation. I knew something was coming. I didn't know how, but I could feel it. And then it happened. The morning of the wedding, I was getting ready in my room when my phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend who worked at the bank. She wrote, "Jenny, you're not going to believe this. Your ex just had his accounts frozen. Something about unpaid debts and fraud. I thought you should know." I stared at the screen, my breath caught in my throat. Fraud. Accounts frozen. On the very day of his wedding. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling my heart pounding with a mix of shock and exhilaration. This is it, I thought. This is the moment everything begins to unravel. And sure enough, by the time I arrived at the wedding venue, the whispers had already started. Guests huddled in corners, muttering about financial problems and trouble with the law. My sister's face was pale beneath her makeup, her hands trembling as she tried to keep up appearances. I stood in the back, watching, waiting, because I knew the real show hadn't even started yet. The wedding hall smelled of roses and polished wood, but beneath the perfume of flowers, I could sense something sour in the air: panic. Guests whispered in small clusters, fanning themselves with the program cards, their voices low but urgent. I slipped into a back row quietly, unnoticed. My sister was nowhere in sight yet, but my ex-husband stood near the altar, his jaw tight, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. He fiddled with his cufflinks, checking his phone every few seconds like a man waiting for a miracle that wouldn't come. The whispers grew louder. "Did you hear? His account's frozen. They say the authorities are looking into it. On his wedding day, can you imagine?" I folded my hands in my lap and kept my face neutral. Inside, though, my heart was racing, not with sadness anymore, but with a strange, quiet thrill. Karma was knocking at the door, and I was front row to watch it kick its way inside. Finally, the music began. The doors opened. My sister appeared on our father's arm, her white dress flowing like a river of silk. She smiled too wide, too forced. Even from a distance, I could see the tremor in her lips, the stiffness in her steps. Every guest rose to their feet, but the atmosphere was brittle, fragile, ready to snap. She walked down the aisle, her eyes darting toward the man waiting for her. For a moment, their gazes met, but instead of love, I saw something else pass between them: fear. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke words about love, trust, and union, words that once would have made me ache but now only felt hollow. I kept my gaze fixed on the two of them, watching closely, waiting for the cracks to split wide open. And then it happened. When the vows began, my sister's voice quivered. She stumbled over her lines, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the ring. The room rippled with murmurs. The officiant tried to smooth things over, but tension hung heavy like a storm cloud. When it was my ex-husband's turn, his voice broke not with emotion, but with anger. He snapped at the officiant for mispronouncing his name, then at a guest who coughed too loudly. The calm, charming mask he'd worn for years was crumbling right there in front of everyone. And then, as if karma wanted to make sure there was no escape, his phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. He tried to silence it, but the sound echoed through the hall. Guests gasped as he pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and went pale. A man in a dark suit stood in the doorway, flashing a badge. The whispers turned into gasps. "Is that police? Here, now." The officer stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Sir, we need to speak with you immediately regarding an open investigation." The room erupted. My sister froze, her bouquet slipping from her hands and scattering petals across the floor. Her face drained of color as she turned toward him. "What's going on? What is this?" she demanded, her voice high and shrill. But he didn't answer her. He was too busy trying to argue with the officer, his words tumbling over each other, desperate and useless. I watched as my sister's dream unraveled in seconds. The whispers became shouts. Guests stood from their seats, some pulling out their phones to record, others rushing for the exits. The air buzzed with shock, scandal, and something else: vindication. And me? I sat perfectly still, my hands folded, my lips pressed into the faintest smile. For the first time in months, I felt whole again. My sister turned then, her eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. For a heartbeat, we locked eyes. Hers were wide with horror, pleading silently for what? Help? Understanding? Forgiveness? But I had none left to give. This was the life she chose. This was the man she fought so hard to steal. And now, this was the price she had to pay. As my ex-husband was escorted out of the hall, red-faced and shouting, my sister collapsed into a chair, her veil slipping sideways. Guests whispered louder, their pity already turning into ridicule. The image she had tried so desperately to create, the fairy-tale wedding, the perfect romance, lay in pieces around her feet. And I didn't need to lift a finger. That's the thing about betrayal: sometimes you don't have to seek revenge. Sometimes you just have to wait, and the truth will expose itself in the harshest light. I rose from my seat quietly, smoothed my dress, and walked out of the hall without a word. I didn't need to stay. I didn't need to watch her cry or explain herself. The show was over and karma had written the perfect ending. As I stepped outside, the afternoon sun hit my face, warm and bright. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. And my sister? Well, she got exactly what she deserved. Because in the end, she didn't just lose me. She lost everything. Sometimes life doesn't need your hands to deliver justice. Sometimes the cruelest punishment is watching the people who betrayed you destroy themselves with their own choices. My sister thought she had stolen my happiness, but in the end, she ruined her own. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by someone close to you? I'd love to hear your story.